Hello, it's Greg McCormack, the President of AFPA. Just reporting to you after our 2 days of meetings. We had a board meeting yesterday afternoon and we had chamber meetings this afternoon, which we've just completed. Last night we had a fantastic event at the National Press Club where we had the AFPA forest policy debate, where we had Senator Ann Ruston, the government Assistant Minister, we had Joel Fitzgibbon, the Labor spokesperson, and Senator Janet Rice, the Green spokesperson on forestry. We asked them a range of questions in a debate format around the key policy areas that we're dealing with. So we talked about the overarching part of this, which is the most important thing, is the National Fibre and Forest Plan. That is the overarching piece that we need to really set the context for forest policy and to develop our resources further. Resource is the key for our industry in the medium and longer term. We also talked about, in particular, the plantation expansion, for which all parties were in favour. We also talked about R&D, and of note, the government had announced the day before a $4 million of new expenditure in the plantation, in the R&D area, which will be focused in on the Mount Gambier area and also in Tasmania. So that's really good news for the industry, and we appreciate the government's support. In the area of R&D expansion, all parties were in favour of that occurring. We talked about the thermal energy, renewable energy certificates. Unfortunately, all parties are opposed to that, and we clearly have an amount of work to do to convince them of the merits of that. We talked about anti-dumping, and all parties were in favour of beefing up their current anti-dumping provisions that apply to forest products. We talked about the native forest renewable energy certificates. The government, as we know, is in favour of that, but both Labor and the Greens are opposed. We talked about farm forestry expansion, and all parties were in favour of growing more trees on farms for the environmental benefits for both the farmland, but also, of course, in sequestering carbon. And we talked about the RFA renewals, where the rollover of the RFAs for a further 20 years, and both Liberal, the government, the coalition, and Labor were in favour, the Greens opposed. And finally, we talked about bushfire mitigation, which is a very important issue, with a number of quite severe bushfires occurring over the past decade, where AFPA's put forward a policy of some mechanical intervention in harvesting, as well as controlled burns to try and reduce fuel loads. We're not quite clear exactly where the Greens stand on this, but Labor and Liberal were fundamentally in favour of that. We also had a board meeting yesterday afternoon, and we covered off a number of issues, and probably the most significant ones were, first of all, the approval of the creation of a new chamber, where basically what we're proposing is that we cut the processing chamber into two. The softwood leaders group has been in existence now for a year, and we'll turn that into a softwood manufacturing chamber, and the existing processing chamber will be renamed the hardwood processors group. In addition, we will continue with a resource chamber, which will be now known as the growers chamber, and the fourth chamber is the pulp and paper chamber. These changes will be up for approval by you as they are constitutional reforms, and they'll be dealt with at the AGM. Along with that will come the creation of two new elected director positions, and there will now be 8 elected, the proposal is there will be 8 elected directors, and the board will still have the opportunity to appoint up to 4 directors to top up on skills, etc. The other issue we talked about at the board was the evolving Australian FSC standard. We've hit a really big impasse at the moment, where we're basically in disagreement with the CFMEU and their representative over their wish to incorporate ILO labour standards, in other words, standards above and beyond what is the law in Australia, into the FSC certification. We are continuing discussions with them, but this is a really significant impasse, and we're very concerned at the direction this might go in. We also welcomed a number of new members. West Timber, SE Pine and Fennel Forestry joined as members, and that is a great thing for the association. In terms of our budget, we're tracking well. We look like we're going to come in at around $50,000 in front of budget for the year. Expenses are being well managed, and revenue is on target. So we're very pleased with that outcome. And we also, the board had a strategic planning day where we spent some time dissecting the association and then putting it back together. You will see a number of governance changes, which we think will all be for the better. But we also talked about some really important strategic opportunities, and probably the biggest of those has to do with both the government and the Labor Party's commitments to CO2 reductions. Government's target is 26 to 28%, and the Labor Party's target is 45% reductions. It is hard to see how any party and any system can achieve such reductions without forestry playing a very important and significant role. We think this is a really big opportunity for us, and we think it's a great opportunity in particular for the further expansion of the plantation estate. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll talk again soon. Thank you.